is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look. No plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit TampaBayRecycles.org.
Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Welcome to the March 11th, 2024 regular meeting of the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for the local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. That's planner@plancom.org. For action items, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chair. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I'd like everybody to please join me in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with praise for your mighty power and guidance. We thank you for this day and thank you too for the many blessings in our lives, for our great country and for the opportunity to live in freedom. We ask your blessings on our leaders, and we ask that you give each one of us here today the wisdom to make the right choices so that our decisions will be in the best interest of the people of Hillsborough County. Amen. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty, with that, I'd like to ask the clerk to please go ahead and call roll.
Bowden.
Here.
Buzza. Cardenas.
Here.
Kona.
Here.
Fernandez.
Here.
Kress. Lauk.
Here.
Saria.
Here.
Seabian. Here. Orton. Rodriguez.
Here.
Joseph.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of the minutes for the following meetings. Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on Hillsborough County Plan Amendments, meeting minutes for January 22nd, 2024. Hillsborough County Planning Commission regular meeting minutes for February 12th, 2024. Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on City of Tampa Plan Amendments, February 12th, 2024. And Hillsborough County Planning Commission public hearing on Hillsborough County Plan Amendments, meeting minutes for February 12th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion to approve by Commissioner Kona, second by Commissioner Bowden. Any questions, discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, would all signify approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. There was no one who signed up in the public input for items not scheduled on the agenda. So we will go to item number 3, adoption of proposed 4-year 25, 4-year 26 budgets, and the presenter is Melissa Zornita.
Good afternoon, Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. In your agenda item, we have 4 what are called decision units that are the way that we request alterations to the budget. we're going into the second year of the 2-year budget, and so that is what the county has asked of us, is just to identify those areas where we may need a change from the continuation budget that has been established. The Budget Committee met on February 29th and reviewed these items as well as the historical budget information that also was contained in the packet. I'll just briefly review each of the 4 budget decision units. The first one relates to cost increases that we can no longer absorb in the operating budget. We've been doing a good job of keeping our operating budget pretty flat since we've been in this continuation budget situation. But we came the closest that we ever have to using all of the operating budget last year. And so we took a look at that and identified a couple of areas, particularly in the areas of public notification, mailings, newspaper ads, signs. The costs in all of those have increased. Additionally, travel costs were another area. So we're asking for $26,000 to be added in those line items in the operating budget. The second decision unit relates to market equity adjustment for staff salaries. Our HR manager, Megan Boterney, did a compensation study at the end of last year. We identified that on average, our classified positions were under market by approximately $5,000 to $6,000 on average. We were able to look at this year's personnel budget and make up about a third of that, and we would like to continue to phase that in the next fiscal year. That request is for $49,110 into the personnel budget. Decision unit number 3 is to cover the absorption of 3 large retirement payouts. And this is something that the budget department doesn't often do, but they recognize that as an agency of 52 employees, it's very hard for us to absorb some of these large payouts that come with longstanding 30-plus year employees who have large amounts of vacation time that they get paid for when they retire. And we have 3 of those that are retiring in FY25. So it was their suggestion, actually, that we request a budget amendment to accommodate that. So that would be $106,498 to the personnel budget in a one-time cost. And then the last item relates to an agenda item that's later on your agenda regarding the expansion of the urban service area and a presentation that we gave to the Board of County Commissioners last week. And they authorized us to go forward with a number of studies related to expanding the urban service area. So we're requesting a principal planner position of a short, limited duration for 3 years to manage those studies, and that would be $116,295, inclusive of benefits for that position. Those are the 4 items, and would request your approval.
All right, we didn't have anyone sign up for public comment on this item, so I'll turn it over to the commissioners for questions or comments. Any discussion? No. All right, and then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to the commissioners for motions on this item. Commissioner Bowden.
I make a motion. Excuse me. I make a motion that we accept the proposed budget for 25-26.
All right, approve, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Is there a second to the motion out there anywhere?
I will
Commissioner
second the motion.
All right, we have a motion approved by Commissioner Bowden, a second to that by Commissioner Surya. Questions, comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any at this time. Will all signify their agreement by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Next up are briefings and presentations. And the first one is 4A, results of the employee engagement survey, and the presenter is Megan Buterney.
Good afternoon. My name is Megan Buterney. Please let me just take a moment to get this up for you all. You also should have these slides in your packet as well. All right, it is that time of year again where we do the engagement survey. We started doing this in 2018 and we do it every 2 years. We use the same consulting firm, HR Soul. The reason we use a consulting firm is so that the staff has a trust that they can be candid, that they can be anonymous, and really give us their feedback. We do break it down by demographics. As you can see, we have it by department, by level, and by years of service. This is the way that we can identify any trends. We were very excited. We received 100% participation rate this year, as we have in all our previous years. So that really demonstrates that the staff does see the importance and the value of this survey. The department and the levels do not change from year to year. The years of service, we have seen a shift since we did start in 2018, where back then we had more tenured or longer tenured folks than we do now. Now, as you'll see, we have much more new folks who come in, new generation, new ideas, and so sometimes that is also a strong influence on our results. Overall, we did very well in this year with my supervisor. So the way the survey is set up, there are questions that go under each category. The categories are here, such as my supervisor, working at Plan Hillsborough overall, my job, senior management, cooperation and teamwork, career and personal development, and total rewards. So it was really great to see that the category of my supervisor rated the highest. So that really demonstrates that our staff, some of the questions would be, my supervisor is approachable, my supervisor is accessible. And so we're very delighted to see that there is that relationship between our employees and their supervisors. As in years past, and Melissa has mentioned this, with the total rewards that did rate low, it is nothing that we were surprised by. It is often a common theme, and it has been since 2018. So, we are always trying to do what we can, and we'll, as Ms. Zornita spoke to, with some of the budget units, we are working on this. Also, we were excited that the majority of employees who completed the 2022 survey saw improvements. So that means that the action steps that we are taking after each survey or after the last 2022 survey really did make an impact. So year-over-year results by category. Again, we feel that in a full transparency, 2022 was extremely high. There could be some reasons why. We were coming out of COVID then. People were probably a little excited to get back out, and so, but we were still very right up there with the results in 2024 in the categories. Again, with the total rewards, we just wanted to make the commissioners aware of some of the comments and some of maybe the angst that our staff is feeling about the total rewards. Won't read every single one since it is in your packet, but we also want to stress that the remote work is seen as a very big positive here in our agency, and I do believe that is seen as a value when people are making choices about working here. I know when I speak to new hires and when we're recruiting, it is extremely valuable when we go against or when they're making decisions to say we're a hybrid workplace. Here we have our benchmarks, again, in all the areas. Our 2024 results, they were a little bit lower than the global government. So this survey is taken in SurveyMonkey. So the consultant is able to pull against industry benchmarks. But we were similar to previous years, except for that really high 2022. This again is just a benchmark of all the questions. Where you see breaks, that means that we've added new questions. So each year, every couple years, we go back, we see what are some areas that we want to delve more into. And so that's where we've added some more questions, and that's where you may not see that comparison. We were very, very happy with this, the values analysis. So after our 2022 survey, we saw where there was a need to maybe revisit our values, to have more staff participation and buy-in. And so after that last survey, we held workshops, we really got a lot of staff input on creating new values. So as you can see, the staff really does believe that our agency is living its values. So briefly, again, they found through the analysis that the My Job, it drives our engagement. We will be doing some focus group follow-up on the area of cooperation and teamwork. And total rewards is an area of opportunity that we've already spoken about. So at this point, we are going to be conducting focus groups, or the consultant will be conducting focus groups in a few different areas. Then once we get those, they will give us a final report with final recommendations. And then from there, leadership, along with staff, will be building out action plans for the next, for the upcoming years. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this is just a presentation, so there's no public comment to the commissioners for questions or comments on the presentation, and it was a great presentation. Commissioner Conan.
Any other county agencies do the same survey?
Not that we're aware of that are using at least the same consultant. And I do ask staff when they're new hires, have you done an engagement survey before? And usually the answer is no, whether they're coming from the private sector or from other county agencies.
Well, kudos to you guys for keeping tracks on that. Last question, total rewards. There's only so much you guys can control. Most of your benefits fall under the same county benefits as everyone else, correct?
That is correct in terms of our insurance, a lot of the paid time off. But that's where we get creative. We seek staff's input. So for instance, again, that's why the hybrid workplace is very important to us. Also the fact that we pay towards certifications such as the AICP, really support staff going to conferences and tuition reimbursement. And then also we ask staff, what is important to you? We've gotten in the past parking passes. So in those ways, we'll supplement staff at certain pay grades or our interns or fellows with parking passes. And we just, again, keep trying to improve and seeing what is it that we can do within our capacity. You're welcome.
Thank you. I had a question. I was wondering
Sure.
about the cooperation and the teamwork. It seemed like in the end we spoke about it, focus grouping. So I'm wondering, one, if you could speak on that because it's consistently low. I noticed in most of the groups, although it wasn't touched on a lot throughout the presentation. But at the end, it's spoken of as definite focus group follow-up. So my second part, besides asking you to speak on cooperation and teamwork, is when can we expect to see some deeper insight into that from the focus, because you said the focus groups are next.
Right. So the focus groups are scheduled for April. We're going to have one focus group that's on inclusivity and teamwork and cooperation. And then we have another one that is on workload and promotion and reclassifications. So we'll get some more insights. I think some of it too is that it's just maybe there's also a change in our demographics and staff that can influence it. Also, there are always some bumps, as Ms. Zornita referenced. We're always getting more asked to do more, which isn't always a bad thing as an agency. That means we're recognized as being experts in the field, and that's something we're very proud of. However, that does come with it a certain amount of workload. And sometimes people can just maybe get stuck in their own silos, and those are some of the things that leadership can guess or make, hey, I think this is why. But that's why we also bring in those focus groups to see where is it that we could be doing, improving upon. So,
Okay, yeah, I think it's important we keep an eye on that, because that's, historically in, public sector work, that silo that you mentioned is a very big thing people talk about, and we want to definitely keep an eye on it. Like I said, I noticed it was in the top 3 lowest each time around, so that definitely caught my eye, and I'm going to be
Sure.
keeping an eye on that as it goes forward, too.
sure. And also, the hybrid, it's a very positive thing, but you have to also remember that in the hybrid, that does also, it's not a perfect solution either, in terms of sometimes maybe folks only see their same people that come in on the Tuesdays and Fridays. So, for instance, we now have staff coming in every once a month for our general staff meetings. That way we can all see each other, talk, and just get that even more interaction. Coming out of the 2022, we kind of rebranded our morale committee to the social club, because we did realize that we are still needing to work on building those relationships, especially with our new hires or people who are on different teams. As HR, I have the luxury of meeting all our new hires, but not everyone has that. So those are some of the things, whether it's a coffee social, games, we'll do some game days, or game at lunch hours, virtual games. And so those are some of the things that we do try to continue to get people to build those relationships.
Very good. I'm glad to hear you make those statements. That's exactly where my mind was going when I looked at this with the whole virtual versus in-person thing. So to hear you speak about that, I'm very happy to hear that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any more comments from the commissioners or questions on this item? I'm not seeing any. We'll thank you for the presentation. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Soria.
Yes, I had a quick question. I
Sure.
saw like total rewards comments. Majority of that was related to compensation, which is definitely a big discussion lately. But is there a parameter that we collect from them that says like how much they would like to have their salaries to be increased, that what would be enough, or so that some data points that can be taken further to like see what can be done down the road as well?
Sure. So are you saying that you're interested in seeing what the staff would like, or
Yes.
what?
What is their what would make things easier for them to take care of things in that case?
Sure. I don't think we've ever really asked straight out or directly, what is it that you would like to make? Because I think we'd hear very different answers across the board on what people think that they should make or deserve. However, with our market study, we take a look at comparator markets, and then we create our pay grades off of those. So we do have the data points from the what the market is dictating to us, not
Okay.
necessarily the staff.
All right. Yeah, the only reason I asked because national inflation is very different than the inflation in city of Tampa, for example. So that can have a different impact. Like if we do market research based on, let's say, a county in a different, smaller city of Florida compared to Hillsborough would be very different parameters, or the numbers would not match up.
Correct. So yes, when I do look at our comparative markets, I look at who is around us in terms of our competition. So City of Tampa, Pinellas County. I also look at some of the counties that are comparable in our size and adjust for location. So when we take a look at Miami-Dade or Jacksonville, those, or even Orlando, then those I adjust to
All right.
compare to ours.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Then we'll thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very
And
much.
we will move on to our next agenda item, which is item 4B, HCCPA 24-01, Comprehensive Plan Amendment to address new statutory requirement for wastewater planning, and the presenter is Melissa Dickens.
Try this again. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Melissa Dickens, Planning Commission staff. Yes, this item is HCCPA 24-01. There was a new requirement for comprehensive plans that was passed during the 2023 legislative session. It pertains to wastewater planning, in particular connecting areas of septic that meet certain thresholds to wastewater and examining the feasibility of that. This request is publicly initiated by your Planning Commission staff. It is a proposed text amendment to the Hillsborough County One Water chapter, and the intent is to meet this new requirement for wastewater planning. The statutory reference is 163-3177-6C3. We have been working on this language in coordination with Hillsborough County Water Resources. Want to thank them and their staff on the record for all of the assistance on this. And we are currently working on finalizing the feasibility analysis that's required as part of this statutory change. That will be provided and included in the packet for the public hearing for this item. The proposed language is One Water Policy 4.2.5. It is quite verbose. The reason for that is the statutory requirement is quite detailed about what is required to be included in the comprehensive plan. So we took the statutory requirement and essentially modified it into a policy that would work for the comprehensive plan. But you can see that the requirement is to examine the feasibility of providing wastewater services for any development of more than 50 residential lots with more than one septic system per acre. And there are a number of technical requirements that have to be included in this analysis. We're not proposing to adopt the analysis itself in the comprehensive plan, but rather have this language serve to meet the statutory requirements and then provide the analysis to the state as well. And this concludes the presentation. I'm available if there are any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing any at this time. I did have one quick one. Are there going to be any impacts to the land development code that fall out from this, or is it just solely a policy thing?
This particular policy is specifically for the comprehensive plan. Okay. So this is something where the county has to prepare an analysis, and that requirement is contained solely within the comprehensive plan.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. Well, thank you for the great presentation. Look forward to seeing it come back to us.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have item 4C, HCCPA 24-02 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 7200 Causeway Boulevard, and the presenter is Bryce Farringer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Bryce Farringer, Planning Commission staff. This is HCCPA 24-02, 7200 Causeway Boulevard. This is a privately initiated small-scale map amendment located on approximately 4.2 acres, and the request is to change the site's future land use designation from residential 9 to residential 20. This is a general location map of the plan amendment submitted for the January cycle. The subject site is located in the central area of Hillsborough County. It's located within the Tampa service area and falls within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. This is an aerial view of the subject site located on the north side of Causeway Boulevard between South 72nd Street and Hermosa Drive. The subject site is zoned as residential single-family conventional 9 to the north and commercial general to the south. It currently contains heavy commercial uses. Light industrial uses are located to the immediate east. Single-family uses extend to the northeast, north, and northwest. Light commercial and vacant uses are located to the west. To the south, across Causeway Boulevard, are heavy industrial, light industrial, and heavy commercial uses. The subject site currently has a future land use designation of residential 9, which is intended to designate areas that are suitable for low to medium density residential development, as well as urban scale neighborhood commercial, office, multi-purpose projects, and mixed use developments. Residential 9 extends to the north, west, and east. To the south is office commercial 20, and the residential 6 future land use category is located further south as well. The request is to change the subject site's future land use designation to residential 20, which is intended to designate areas for high density residential development, as well as urban scale neighborhood commercial, office, multi-purpose projects, and mixed use developments. Overall, the proposed change would allow for an increase in the amount of non-residential development and maximum allowable dwelling units on the subject site. This concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion items on this one from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Cardenas.
I'm wondering, do we have any, know of any other similar requests along Causeway?
There are similar pockets of residential 20 that are located further east of this site. That's something that'll be incorporated in the staff report. I would have to look to see if those have been initiated by comp plan amendments, but there are pockets of that land use category that are within this area.
Okay.
Along Causeway.
All right. Yeah, funny enough, like about 2 weeks ago, I was driving down Causeway right here, and it does seem that street is very industrial. Like you really do see that, and there was only one kind of newer apartment community over there, and I mean, we're still trying to protect our industrial land, right?
We are, but this is residential 9 right now, so it's not, doesn't allow for industrial. There were at least 2 other comprehensive plan amendments, as Bryce was saying, to the east that did the same thing and went up to the residential 20. Yeah.
I had a question. Are we going to, in the staff report, is there going to be any discussion of transportation services and stuff out there?
That's something that we can certainly look into.
Okay.
Just so that the commission is aware, this one may have a concurrent zoning application with it, which isn't something that's in the scope of this board's review. But the intent is to increase the amount of housing there, and so obviously you need to have transportation services available. So that's something that we can certainly incorporate into the report.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions or discussion items? I'm not seeing any lights, so we'll thank you for the presentation. Move on to our next agenda item. HCCPA 24-03 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 1347 Kingsway Road, and the presenter is Alexis Myers.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2403, located at 1347 North Kingsway Road. This is a privately initiated plan amendment that is small in scale and approximately 8.57 acres. This request is to go from residential 1 to the light industrial future land use category. Here is the general location map. This amendment is within the rural area and is also located within the limits of the Tonota-Sassa Community Plan. It is located north of Interstate 4 and east of North Kingsway Road and Sly Avenue. Here is the aerial of the site. For visual context, the subject properties are outlined in pink, and the blue line indicates the urban service area boundary. There are vacant there is a vacant single-family home on one of the parcels, while the other one is vacant. Kingsway Road goes over Interstate 4 as well. As far as the uses in the area, there are single-family uses to the north, west, and along the south across Interstate 4. There are also agricultural and vacancies in the area. Currently, the future land use designation of the site is residential 1. The typical uses include farms, ranches, residential uses, rural scale neighborhood commercial uses, offices, and multi-purpose projects. Commercial, office, and multi-purpose projects shall meet locational criteria for a specific land use. Other future land use designations shown in this map include residential 4 and agricultural estate. The applicant, again, is requesting to change the future land use category to light industrial. Typical uses in light industrial include processing, manufacturing, and assembly of materials, including food products, storage, furniture, or apparel manufacturing, packaging plants, wholesaling/showrooms with retail sales, which occupy no more than 20% of the floor area of the principal uses, office, research/corporate parks as the predominant uses and subordinate uses, or services such as hotels, motels, restaurants, suburban scale retail establishments, and recreational facilities. Next are the impacts. As far as the existing conditions, currently under residential 1, which allows up to 1 dwelling unit per gross acre, the site could consider up to 8 dwelling units or 110,000 square feet of non-residential uses. Under the proposed future land use category of light industrial, no residential is allowed except limited accessory residential. The site could consider around 280,000 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the elimination of residential uses. However, it will increase non-residential uses and introduce industrial use within a predominantly residential and agricultural area. This concludes my presentation for HCCPA 2403. If you have any questions, I am happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion items from the commissioners on this one? Yes, Commissioner Rodriguez.
Oh, yes, Alexis. This is just outside of the urban service area, correct?
Yes, it's right outside of the urban service area.
All right, thank you.
I did have one question. Are there any past annexations? Can staff look at that to see what's been, I guess, going on around kind of the subject property? Because again, I know we've been in discussions outside of this about expanding the urban service area, some areas around I-4 there. So I'm just kind of interested into what, if any, comp plan amendments or map amendments have gone on around in the area around this property. If you could look at that when this comes back for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's one that's further south on Kingsway Road as well.
Okay. All right. Are there any other discussion items, questions from the commissioners, requests? Not seeing any. We'll thank you for the great presentation and move on to our next agenda item. HCCPA 24-04, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Public Schools Facility Element. And the presenter is Sophia Garantiva.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Sophia Garantiva here, presenting on HCCPA 2404, Public Schools Facility Element Update. So a little bit of background on the publicly initiated element. The last time this element was revised was back in 2016. This is also a optional comprehensive plan element, so it does not have the same requirements as some of the other elements in the comprehensive plan, such as the future land use element. So we are proposing this update mainly to address changes in state legislation and the updated interlocal agreement for schools facility planning, siting, and concurrency, also known as the ILA. So some of the proposed changes include updating policies on intergovernmental coordination and the sharing of information per the interlocal agreement, updating policies on the location of schools facilities, concurrency review process per the ILA and Florida state statutes, updating the level of service table to the most recent standards, and also updating references to the Florida state statutes and various interlocal agreement sections, and general nomenclature and formatting. We do have a public engagement opportunity coming up. We have a virtual public meeting on March 28th. We can present to the public these changes. We also have a project website that is up where we can collect public comment. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any discussion items or questions or requests from the commissioners on this one? Yes, Ms. Ornito.
I would just add that Sophia worked very closely with Commissioner Orton, who's unfortunately on spring break today, but on the element.
Okay, that was the question I was going to ask, so I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. All right, are there any other questions, comments? Not seeing any, then we'll thank you for the presentation and move on to our next agenda item. Item 4F, HCCPA 24-05, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment 13609 North Florida Avenue, and the presenter is Melissa Leinhardt.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am presenting on behalf of David Hay today. This is HCCPA 2405, which is located at 13609 Florida Avenue. This request is privately initiated. It is also small in scale. It's approximately 2.83 acres in size, and the request is to go from the residential 12 and the OC 20 or office commercial 20 future land use categories to all office commercial 20. This request is part of the January 2024 cycle of plan amendments. It is the northernmost plan amendment you see on this map. It is in the urban service area. It's also within the limits of the Greater Carrollwood Northdale Community Plan. And here's an aerial of the subject site, which is outlined in yellow. You have North Florida Avenue directly to the west. A little bit further south, you have Fletcher Avenue. To the north is 138th Street, and then further to the east is I-275. There's a variety of uses in the area. You see several different kinds of residential uses and different housing types. You see multifamily, you see single family, duplexes, some mobile homes. There's also a lot of light commercial and heavy commercial, and then there's some public institutional uses like churches scattered about as well. This is the existing future land use map for the subject property. It's comprised of 3 separate parcels. They are split between office commercial 20 and residential 12. So this request would be to make the entire site office commercial 20, and you can see in the area you have residential 4, which is located across Florida to the west, and then you have residential 12 that's transitioning away from the office commercial 20 corridor that's along Florida Avenue, and then across Interstate 275 you see more of the office commercial 20 and the residential 12. With the existing designations, the site can be considered for up to 45 residential dwelling units or around 78,000 square feet of non-residential. With the change, the site could be considered for up to 56 residential dwelling units or up to 92,500-ish square feet of non-residential uses. As you can see, the proposed amendment would result in additional potential square feet or density, depending on how the site is developed. And with the change to office commercial 20, that could potentially introduce more intensive uses like commercial intensive zoning district uses. That is the end of my presentation, and I am here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion items, requests from the commissioners? Not seeing any lights, then we will thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And we will move on to our next agenda item. We're really moving through this stuff. 4G, unincorporated Hillsborough County Land Development Code text amendments. And there's 7 of them that I'm not going to read. I'll let the staff read them, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Hi, Jillian Massey with your Planning Commission staff. I'm here to just introduce Israel Monsanto from the county's Department of Development Services. He'll be going through each Land Development Code amendment proposed for this round. As you can see, there are 7 of them, and I would just suggest maybe pausing in between each to allow for that time for any questions or comments for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Israel Monsanto, Development Services, Hillsborough County. Commissioners, we're presenting 7 items. There will be a public outreach on April 2nd. We're going to share the proposed amendments with the general public to get some input from them. Then we will be back in front of you for the consistency finding on April 8th. First public hearing before the county commissioners will be May 9th, and the second and the adoption hearing will be on June 6th. We already had a Board of County Commissioners workshop a couple of weeks ago. Again, we have 7 items. The first 3 items, commissioners, some of you probably may have seen them before. They were part of the round 1 last year. They were put on pause, on hold, and then they're back again in front of the commissioners and also in front of you. So we have the vaping retail shop standards, comprehensive plan amendments with related rezoning applications, as well as Planning Commission rezoning report filing deadlines. The third item is the yard waste, air curtain, incinerator land development code text amendments. Then we have a Live Local Act, administrator approval, and land use restriction agreement or LURA process, private road railroad crossings, written authorization by rail line owners. Then we have a wetland setback reduction, text amendment, and then finally irrigation plans revisions. 230138, this is the vaping retail shop standards. This will add development standards to the location and permitting of the establishments that sells vaping products within 500 feet of private or public schools, elementary, middle, and secondary. This will require a conditional use zoning permit to be approved for the establishments within 500 feet of public or private schools. Vaping retail shops within those 500 feet of a school would be permissible. Conditional use in commercial neighborhood, commercial general, commercial intensive, and manufacturing districts, as well as planned developments which permit uses allowed in the zoning districts mentioned above. It will prohibit the vaping retail shops with more than 20% of its total monthly retail sales of vaping products within 500 feet of the public or private schools, and also vaping retail shops with more than 20% of its total monthly retail sales of vaping products that are located within 500 feet of the schools that were permitted use and in lawful operation by the effective date of this amendment will be deemed a legal non-conforming use per the code. And this is directed by the Board of County Commissioners. And this concludes the general presentation for this first item.
All right. Are there any, I see Commissioner Fernandez moving.
Yeah, I'd mentioned this, I think, a couple months ago. Have you looked at, and even if you increase the distance, measuring by normal means of pedestrian travel instead of a straight parcel line to parcel line? Because people don't float over there, they walk there or drive there. So it does, I've analyzed hundreds of these types of codes, and a lot of times you end up eliminating properties that are probably a 1 mile drive or walk when it was intended, to be a closer distance. So even increasing the distance, but doing it by normal means of pedestrian travel, I think makes more sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lowe.
Clarity and comprehension check for me, please. Can you pull that last slide back up, please, with the 20% requirement for any vaping shop? So did I understand it correctly where it's post-approval, if it's under a conditional use, it's approved. If it exceeds more than 20% within 500 feet, it's a non-conforming use at that point?
No, or if they're existing establishment prior to the amendment, then they are deemed legal non-conforming uses. Let's say they sell 25% and today. So everything that's in existence prior to the adoption is a legal non-conforming use. So they are basically capped at those 25%, and they won't be able to increase it. They will be basically deemed legal non-conforming at the percentage that they have at that point of the adoption.
Okay, so if a shop is in existence that's at 22% prior to the enactment of this,
they will be basically approved at, they are approved at 22% as a legal non-conforming use.
And then how is that going to be governed? How's that going to be implemented, in other words?
Well,
does the shop owner have to provide its books every year?
Correct. The code's going to be amended to the county have the ability to request a report of the sales, and they will have to provide that to the county. And then if that sale exceeds that percentage, then they have to demonstrate that they are a legal non-conforming use, that they say, well, I've been here for many years ago. They have to provide that so the county can evaluate and deem it and certify as a legal non-conforming use. So the county will have the ability to request a report, a sales report.
Do we have anything similar in any of?
For example, alcoholic beverage permits, we have a similar requirement in the code that the county can request a sales. Also for microbrewery, the county also have that in the code that we can request the sales report for the operator or property or business owner to provide that, so the county can evaluate and confirm if they have that, the sales percentage per the code.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. I was just wondering, what are the impacts, Ms. Zornita, it's probably a question for you, that we should be looking forward to for the comprehensive plan? Because obviously this is land development code stuff that I'm sure the Board of County Commissioners is going to have fun with. But our part of it is just, if I'm not correct, finding consistency with the comprehensive plan, right?
Yes, and staff has not completed their review, but I would think that some of the policies related to compatibility with neighborhood uses, in particular compatibility with residential support uses like schools, would be some of the policies we'd be looking towards for guidance.
Okay, all right. Any other comments or discussion items from the commissioners? All right, continue on, Mr. Monsanto.
Thank you. Next item, 230311. This modifies the procedure for amendments to the official atlas or rezonings of the Land Development Code, specifically the consideration of final decision by the county commissioners when rezonings or major modifications applications are related also to applications to amend the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. This amendment also modifies the filing date for reports prepared by your staff from the Planning Commission for hearing applications. for the official zoning atlas and rezoning. So one establishes that applications, proceedings in accordance with the Land Development Code that are contingent on a request to amend also the official Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County will be deemed withdrawn and of no further effect in the event that such request amendment of the official of the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan is denied by the county commissioners, and no further proceedings or action will be required. And then the second element of this amendment is that it will eliminate the 12-day calendar requirement for the filing of report with the administrator by planning commission staff. And this is for hearing officer applications, and instead the filing of these reports will be in accordance with a hearing master schedule that our department keeps by the administrator. And this is similar to other agencies like transportation, water, and so on. So it will be basically following the same schedule that we have in place.
All right. Any questions or discussion items? I see Ms. Sornita moving.
Sure. I would just mention that the first part of this amendment, actually the city of Tampa initiated something similar, I think last year, in their land development code. Just as we're seeing more rezonings come concurrent with plan amendments, it means that once if the plan amendment's denied, the rezoning's like automatically withdrawn because they can't move forward without the plan amendment. So, yeah.
Any questions or discussion items, comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any lights. We'll ask you to continue. Thank you.
All right. The next item is 230312. This one modifies the standards for yard waste air curtains, incinerator, or ACI facilities. This amendment will distinguish between commercial facilities that accept yard trash generated off-site for incineration, and also those that are temporary or an accessory to the clearing of land, limited to the incineration of yard trash generated on-site only. The amendment will specify that the commercial facilities will only be permissible as a conditional use on the commercial intensive and manufacturing zoning districts. And also this facility will be limited to the incineration of yard trash only, and open pile burning will be prohibited. The facilities that are accessory to land clearing for site development will be permitted in all zonings as a conditional use. This amendment will also provide for minimum required setbacks along boundaries and roadways, increased yard for residential development or zonings, restricts the duration of the use for accessory or temporary ACIs, and also requires screening by a solid fence. That concludes this presentation.
All right. Are there any questions on this one, Commissioner Fernandez?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the regulations are on yard waste burning, but this was something brought up in a summit in December at Homegrown Hillsborough, actually, that that waste could be used possibly for fertilizer for so many agricultural uses in the county. So I don't know, and we do that. I just want to bring it up, that it's a shame that they're just burning it up when it can possibly be used in other places.
Thank you. Commissioner Rodriguez.
Yes. In times past, when we've had some severe hurricane damage, where we've had a lot of debris, yard debris and so forth generated, we've set up some of these air curtain incinerators around the county, kind of like a regional burn to get rid of some of this stuff. How will this land use code affect those emergency situations where we're going to have a lot of yard waste, due to, say, a hurricane generated, but you've got some very specific land use types or zonings that you would use that at. I mean, I remember we actually had some set up in agricultural areas, but it had good road access and was an open area, so it was used. So that's something that I think needs to be fleshed out, are those special uses or emergency uses.
That's a good question, and I'm pretty sure the APC, they handles those type of emergency situations, but that's a good comment. I have that we come back.
All right. Were there any other questions, comments, or discussion? I did have a question about the EPC. Are they granted any authority in this in any way? Or
We are actually working very close with APC. We have having constant meetings with them, and they have provided additional input that will be presented to you again. What we're trying to do is to get this amendment consistent with what the APC regulates for this site. So we are constantly working with them on this one.
Very good. All right. Are there any other comments or questions from the commissioners' discussion items? Seeing any, we'll ask you to continue. Thank you.
Next item, 240340. This is the Live Local Act. This will implement the Live Local Act, or LLA, recently created by Senate Bill 102, and establishes the standard for an administrative procedure for new projects developed under this act. And also we provide the land use restriction agreement process. Live Local Act projects will still adhere to all limitations and requirements contained in the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, as well as the proposed land development code regulations for multifamily developments in areas zoned for such. The amendment will provide the criteria and development requirements for a project to qualify under the Live Local Act in the county, consistent with the statute. It also establishes the procedure for review of these new projects in the county and the submittal requirements by the applicants and internal process between development services and also the affordable housing services. The amendment will also create 2 new sections in our code, one for the development standards and criteria for these projects, and that would include allowable zoning districts, maximum heights, parking requirements, the density up to 35 dwelling units per the acre, occupancy requirement for affordable housing, and also will provide for buffering and screening between multifamily uses and those lands designated as heavy industrial. It would also add the process for the administrative review when these Live Local Acts comes in, and also the process for the applicants to start the land use restriction agreement with the county before they can go and move on to the site development process. And if you have any questions.
All right. Are there any questions or discussion items from the commissioners on this one? Not seeing any, then we'll ask you to continue on.
Thank you. Next item is 240341, private railroad crossings, written authorization by the rail line owners. These will add requirement for future development seeking private railroad crossings, including agritourism activities, to obtain written authorization from the rail line owners. All new developments, and again, including agritourism activities crossing existing rail lines on private road, will be required to provide a written authorization to the county by that rail line owner. This authorization will allow the opportunity to assess the type and amount of the traffic that would be crossing their rail line to ensure the appropriate crossing controls are in place, and mostly for safety purposes. And this concludes this presentation for this item.
All right. Were there any questions or discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, then we'll thank you and ask you to keep on moving.
All right. Next item. 240342, wetland setbacks reduction. This amendment will refine the instances where wetland setbacks will provide functional protection to the adjacent wetland. This will remove the requirement for a setback when wetlands are approved to be impacted, creating a new wetland line, and the changes to that site would not have water flowing through the otherwise applicable setback area to that wetland. It will incorporate allowances for fences that do not impede the flow of stormwater to be located within the wetland setback area, and will also permit pool screen enclosures to be located in portions of wetland setback areas where pools are currently allowed. And this will be amending section 40107 of the Land Development Code, which is the setback for preservation and conservation areas. That concludes this presentation.
Right. Were there any questions or discussions on this one? Commissioner Fernandez?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just curious, most wetlands that I see when we're looking at flood maps, they're usually side by side, so I'm just curious how this would even work if there is a flood zone adjacent to the wetland and then, allowing more impervious surface. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to put that together in my head. Sorry.
Well, this amendment, what we will do is that there is a current practice that when you have a retention wall on a project that is near a wetland, or there is an approved impact to a wetland, when that is approved, then you are not requiring that applicant to also then provide, again, the 30-foot wetland from that new line. So this is going to memorialize that process. The other two is the fences, as long as they don't impede the flow of the water. And then the last one is for the pool enclosure. So right now, the county allows the surface of the pool to be encroaching no more than 15 feet into the 30-foot. Today is a 30-foot minimum, right? So today the code allows for no more than 15 feet for the pervious, but then there is nothing about the enclosure, and typically you would enclosure your pool. So what this will allow is that it will clarify that you can then put the enclosure on that surface, hardscape surface, which is already approved, again, no more than 15 feet into the setback. Now, when you're talking about the flood zone, well, typically our maps, like you said, doesn't make necessarily distinction between what is a flood zone or the wetland, but we always go with what the APC delineates. If the APC delineates the setback as well as the wetland line, that's what we, staff, will go with that, what's delineated by the APC.
Okay, no, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Were there any other comments or discussion items? Not seeing any, then we'll ask you to please continue.
All right, and the last item today is 240343, irrigation plans revisions. This amendment aims to reduce duplicative irrigation designs by eliminating the need for developers to submit an irrigation plan for review during the subdivision application process and site development process. Again, this will eliminate the requirement for applicant to submit an irrigation plan, as increasing the review efficiency. It will require, though, that the irrigation design meets the Land Development Code design criteria attested to by a Florida State licensed professional. What happens is that today, when an applicant submits an irrigation plan, they submit what's the minimum required by the code, but they always submit an additional plan for additional vegetation that they want to also irrigate. So when they submit those duplicate plans, our staff has to review both, even though they only need to review one. And then sometimes when they start the process, they have to make changes to those plans. And sometimes it's that plan that we don't necessarily require, and then that's an additional effort that staff has to do. With this amendment, the applicant will only have to provide the design that meets the code, and the designer will have to attest it to that is meeting the code requirements, the minimum code requirements, instead of submitting multiple plans which only one meets the requirement.
All right. Were there any questions on this? And I had a quick one. So will they still be submitting the one original basic plan to you all?
Correct. Okay. They will be submitting what's required per code minimum, and then that will have to be attested by the professional.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. All right. Are there any other comments or questions, discussion items? Not seeing any. That would thank you for the great presentations.
You're welcome.
And we will move on to our next agenda item, item 4H, Urban Service Area Expansion Report. Dun, dun, dun. And the presenters are Andrea Papandrew and Sophia Garantiva.
Good afternoon, Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. Sophia Garantiva and I will be discussing the Urban Service Area Expansion Report that was presented to the Board of County Commissioners earlier this month. So just a bit of background. Commissioner Myers requested staff at the November 17th, 2023 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting to identify areas for potential expansion of the urban service area and for the county to identify potential funding sources. And staff reported back to the board on March 6th of 2024, and Sophia will discuss kind of the results of that discussion at the end of this presentation. And then the proposed future land use section update includes language on a new process for looking at the expansion of the urban service area and outlines policies that help form the type of study that needs to be undertaken as we consider these new areas. So just to recap some of the information that we've been going through as we've been updating the comprehensive plan, as we look out to 2050, we're anticipating over 500,000 more people and over 400,000 more jobs in Hillsborough County. So breaking that down for population growth, it's anticipated for unincorporated county that would grow by 39%, which is an increase of approximately 393,000 people. And then looking at the employment slide for unincorporated county, that would be a growth of approximately 43% or 191,000 people. So it's a significant amount of growth that we need to kind of identify locations for where people are going to live and work. And this looks at the existing urban service area and the land that we have available for future development and redevelopment. So 49,908 total acres of developable and redevelopable land within the urban service area and the 3 cities. So 32,661, or 65% of that land, is in the unincorporated Hillsborough County urban service area, and then 35% is in the 3 cities. You've seen this map with the future land use section update before. It shows us the developable land in purple and redevelopable land in orange, which excludes wetlands. So what this map is really showing is that we don't have a lot of large acreage left. The ones that we do have left, the larger parcels, already have entitlements, some of them, such as the Energy Industrial Park or the Mosaic land. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sophia.
Hello again, Commissioners. Sophia Garantiva, Planning Commission staff for the record. So as part of the initial geography identification process, staff looked at various data points for the rural area. So much of the data is represented in maps. All the maps can be found in your agenda packet, but we included a few in the presentation. The population projections as shown here for the rural area, you could see where the concentration of growth is anticipated to occur. And this is based on existing land use categories that allow for 1 unit per acre. This map shows the vacant and developable areas for the rural area in orange. As you can see, there's not as many areas in the northwest part of the county. A lot of the larger tracts are located east around the I-4 corridor and south around Balm, Waimama, and near the county line. This map illustrates the location of the larger natural preserve lands, which helps us provide a boundary for where expansion could potentially occur. So the result of staff's analysis led to the identification of 4 potential study areas for expansion as shown. So starting with the Waimama Village Residential 2, WVR2 in orange, and Residential Plan 2, RP2 in green. These 2 land use categories are located outside the urban service area and allow for up to 2 dwelling units per acre. But to be able to develop up to that density, extension of water and sewer and other services need to be provided. We feel like these categories acted like an expansion area already and have had significant study, infrastructure planning, public engagement occur in recent years. So we can look at these areas first for expansion of the existing urban service area. The other 2 areas are the I-4 corridor in purple and Little Manatee South in yellow. The I-4 corridor is intentionally broad to cover multiple areas that have been discussed over the years, as well as areas where there may be opportunities for joint planning with the City of Plant City. Since these 2 areas have not had significant additional planning occur yet, there would be the opportunity to study them through the expansion area process, as Ms. Papandreou outlined before, through the future land use section is where this process is outlined. Further study would include refinement of these boundaries for these areas, the infrastructure needs, and a land use assessment. So the second part of the Board of County Commissioners' request was to identify current funding options to potentially support this expansion. County staff prepared the following list of sources that could be used. So this includes mobility fees, development agreements, state grants, special assessment areas, community development districts, user fees, financial options, and the community investment tax. And as mentioned earlier in this meeting, the board, county commissioners took action on March 6th, last Wednesday, and they gave us the go-ahead to move forward with expanding the urban service area for the WVR2 and the RP2 areas, and additional study for the Interstate 4, the I-4, and Little Manatee South areas, and to bring that information back to the Board of County Commissioners. So this would include infrastructure needs, and possible funding options for those areas. And that concludes the presentation. Staff is here available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussion items, thoughts from the commissioners? Not seeing any. Then I did have one comment. I thought the presentation was done very well. I got the opportunity to watch Ms. Zornita give it last week to the Board of County Commissioners, and it was also interesting then to hear their comments, the feedback on it. It seemed like they were very pleased with the report, so kudos to you and staff for the hard work you've done on all of this. So thank you very much. Are there any comments, discussion items from the commissioners? Not seeing anyone moving, then we'll thank you for the presentation and move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, evaluation of executive director. Evaluation of executive director, and the presenters are myself and Mr. Tracy Robin. Do you want to start off, Mr. Robin?
I'll be glad to. Good afternoon, everyone. You should all have received by now a copy of the evaluation package for Ms. Zornita, and I trust that you've got a copy with you, and we'd like to have you complete them this afternoon, and I'll collect them. If you need one, I have a couple extras here. Just let me know.
I put one at each of their seats.
Also, please be sure to sign the form and initial each page, so we'll know whose evaluations we're looking at for tallying purposes. Thanks, everyone. We'll collect any remaining ones from commissioners who were not able to be present today and have these all totaled up using the consensus method that was adopted by the commission years ago. And we will have that consensus distributed to you between now and the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, now that that's done, we will move on to our next item of business, our item number 6, Executive Director's Report. And the presenter is Melissa Zornita.
Yes, good afternoon again, Melissa Zornita. So at your seat is Executive Director's Report. Just wanted to highlight a couple of items. On February 13th, staff held a virtual public meeting on an amendment to the One Water section of the county's comprehensive plan. Ms. Stickens has been here previously to brief you all on that. The Board of County Commissioners in December asked for a couple of additional changes to that language. We've gotten quite a bit of public input on that, particularly from the Keystone community. They're very concerned about extensions of water and sewer into that portion of the rural area. We've requested any additional public comment to come in by this week, and we'll be bringing that back as part of a public hearing in April to you all. We've got a follow-up meeting with EPC, the water, and the utility department for the county, development services next week to finalize the language, but that one looks like it could be a little more controversial than the normal. There is a companion land development code amendment to that one that goes with it. We've been making good progress on our Fowler Vision Plan and wrapping that up with project team meetings that were focused on the City of Tampa's language and the county's language in the last month. We've had community meetings on the Northeast Plant City Master Plan update. Had great turnout there, despite it being the opening day of the Strawberry Festival, which we didn't realize when we set it up, but we still had close to 100 people in attendance at that meeting, and we had good turnout at a series of Valrico Community Plan open houses at the beginning of this month. I was fortunate to be asked to be a guest lecturer at a USF planning class, and then the next day at an FSU planning class. So that was a lot of fun, getting to talk to the students. A lot of meetings related to some of the actions with the Board of County Commissioners, the Urban Service Area Expansion Report that you heard about, but also last Thursday evening we had the public hearing on the future land use section of the comprehensive plan for the county being transmitted to the state. They transmitted 6 of the 8 goals to the state. They continued the goal 4, which was the goal about development, but there's a lot of policies within that, but their specific interest was on the locational criteria for commercial development. We had kind of taken the opposite approach to the large study we had done, and we made very few changes, and it seems like maybe we need to be somewhere in the middle. So we're going to take another crack at that. The other goal that they continued was goal 6, that a couple of you had identified some concerns with the language related to design, and that perhaps that was a bit too specific for in the comprehensive plan. They echoed that concern and asked us to take another pass at the language and try to streamline it further. If either of those have really dramatic changes, we will bring it back before you all for another review as well. Let's see. The only other thing that I wanted to highlight is that we did settle on a retreat date. May 1st in the afternoon will be the Planning Commission retreat. That by far had the most who could attend. We're still working on a location, and as soon as we identify that, we'll add that information to your calendars. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Are there any questions, discussion items from the commissioners? I had a couple questions.
Sure.
I was wondering about Flip USF Day logistics discussion. How did that go?
It went great. Professor Linkus has offered to help us with some of the logistics of USF Day. I think Commissioner Fernandez has been roped into giving a presentation again, so that went great. Yeah.
All right. Is Cutter involved? I know every now and then we usually get some people from there.
Yes, I
involved.
think she was. Some of the folks have changed there, and she was going to be reaching out to them about that.
Okay. And my other one was this last one, GHG emissions estimation tools demo. What was that about?
So this is the county's community and infrastructure planning have created a tool that will estimate greenhouse gas emissions along both countywide based on all the roadway miles, and then in specific corridors if you want to look at different scenarios. I will say that a lot of it was much more technical in terms of inputs to the spreadsheet and what it could come out with. Some folks like Wade and Lizzie and Johnny were also there from our team, and probably could explain it in more detail than I can. But they presented it not only to us, but also to the transportation planning organizations for Pasco and Pinellas. Because there are some performance targets that the MPOs have to consider related to greenhouse gas emissions, and this is one way to estimate those and be able to then track them as different projects and things change.
All right. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? That's all from me. All right, not seeing any. Well, thank you for the report. Move on to our next agenda item. Item number 7, other business, chair's business. I have none. Old business, I don't believe there is any. Anyone have any new business for us? Not seeing anyone moving quickly at this time. We'll move on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Yay, Commissioner Cardenas?
Yeah, at the Affordable Housing Committee, we, at our last meeting, kind of just discussed a bit about what the committee does and whose responsibility is kind of to do what, just to try to add some more organization to hopefully be more successful in the future and just to be able to track more what we're doing. So it's kind of an ongoing process, but we're starting to kind of do that, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. All right, were there any other committee reports? Not seeing any. Then we will move on, and that looks like the end of our meeting. So at 4:28 p.m. or 4:29 by HTV time, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.